listening to episode 144 of Mitolife Radio. Today, I'm interviewing Oxana Colibnic on emotional health. This is the first interview I've had on a subject like this. I mean, I've talked about emotional health off and on with other guests, but I've never focused entirely on it for an entire episode. Oxana and I were talking about how it's sometimes difficult to put this subject into words because when she works with clients one-on-one with psychosomatic coaching or hypnotherapy, it's so contextual and it's so individual that apparently she asks different questions for every client. So it's not a cut and dry step-by-step process from my understanding, but it's fascinating to me. We talk about panic attacks, hypnotherapy, adrenal fatigue, dreaming, and trauma. I've had a few sessions with Oxana and I was really impressed. I definitely felt lighter and more grounded after the session. So here we go. Here is Oxana Colibnic. All right, we are here with Oxana Colibnic. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to chat about this. I haven't had too many shows on emotional health. I've talked about it throughout some shows, and I have a very basic understanding of it. I have friends that introduced me years ago to that book called The Emotion Code, and it went into, all the different emotions, grief, anger, sadness, or I guess that's kind of like grief. You can tell I don't know a lot about this, but the connection they have with physical diseases. And that's really fascinating to me. And before we started recording, we were just talking about that, what percent to put on it, of how much a physical disease is emotional and how much is all the pollution and all the chemicals and stuff like that. But yeah, so welcome.
Thank you. I also studied emotion code. I read the book, and one thing about emotion code and the technique that I do is that in emotion code, they say that you don't need to know nothing about the emotion, right? And in what I do, we actually kind of partially go again through the trauma that you experienced. And I know this sounds a little scary for some people, right? But if they're not ready, we don't do this, right? There's other stuff like EMDR that can be very helpful, and physical therapy and massage and emotion code. But there are people like me that really tried everything: faster EFT, emotion code, EMDR, massages, chiropractor. But I had to know the root cause of my emotions, right? That then caused whatever it caused in my body.
Interesting. And that makes me think of hypnotherapy, which I've done, I think, once. And I was really surprised because I had saw the movie, I think it was The Fifth Kind, and movies like this about ETs and hypnotherapy. And I thought it was kind of BS, but then she counted down from 100, and by 50, I was like essentially napping, but like half awake. So ever since then, I've been fascinated with hypnotherapy, and that's basically reliving the traumatic event, right?
Right. So the reason why hypnotherapy is because consciously we can know some things about the event, right? And remember or not remember things about the event that was traumatizing. But then when we go into hypnosis, into this state of suggestibility or just the hypnotic state, then we find that a lot of information actually shows up, and then we are able to work with it in hypnosis.
Is it true the subconscious mind is like a recorder? Like I thought the movie Limitless portrayed that really well, because he took this nootropic pill, the ultimate one, and he would remember every single detail that everything he ever read or heard or saw his entire life was accessible. And that's basically the subconscious mind, right?
Absolutely. Actually, I had a client I worked with once, and we traced the trauma. We traced the emotion that's linked to the trauma that she experienced to when she was about 5 years old. And we finished the session. And after the session, she said that she didn't have recollection of anything like that happened. Right. And it was one of the first ones in my practice. And I was very worried. I couldn't understand how this could have happened. So in about 2 weeks, she contacted me and she said, you know what? I spoke with my mom. In the session, we found that emotion that she experienced wasn't hers. It was her mom's. So, little kids, right? How does she know to have this kind of emotional reaction to a thing? So her mom told her that a day before she got sick, she went to hospital, to emergency. One day before, her mom lost her favorite job she had, and she didn't take it well. She took it extremely bad. She was very worried, very stressed out. And now her daughter got sick. So she experienced her mom's emotion, right? And then if I asked her consciously if she was awake, if she was not hypnotized, she didn't remember this, nothing. So hypnosis is very powerful and it records everything. It's the lack of tools for us to access it. That's the problem, right? But the unconscious mind remembers everything, all of the details. That's why people grow up to be afraid of dogs. If they were once scared when they were 2 or 3 years old, right? And they grow up and they're afraid of dogs. And the smell can trigger fear. So basically, when they grow up, they will experience the same emotion they experienced when they got scared the first time. And it could be from the smell. It could be from the shape of the dog. It could be from dog, any dog, right? And it could be from even noise that was around when he or she experienced this.
Wow. Is it accurate to say, like, throughout our life, like as a man, I was born, I was circumcised, I was C-section baby, there's a trauma right there, blue light out the gate, and then, went through school and, had fights or whatever, and then family drama or whatever. Is it kind of accurate to say that throughout our life, from the very beginning up till now, we have all these events happen, and traumatic events that cause like energy to be like trapped in the body if it's not processed and we don't work through and process the emotions that we felt during those times? Is that somewhat accurate, or?
Yes, and depending on how you look at it, right? So if you look at it from the point of view of psychosomatic coaching, there is actually an even deeper explanation for this, right? So, for example, just to kind of tap on the trauma that you experienced or might have not experienced when you were circumcised, right? So we could probably find it and give it a closure, a conclusion, right? So it doesn't follow you. So you don't live with it, right? So it doesn't bother you. You'll have the memory or not. I'm not sure how old were you? Probably not memory, but you will not be affected by that emotion that was created from that pain, from that fear, right? So in regards to trauma being stored as energy, I look at it both ways. One of it is, yes, it stores as energy in the body, right? It kind of, some people can feel it, it's here or there. But also what I noticed in my own experience is that I can store trauma in my organs, right? And my organs actually go through a process to help me with that trauma. So, for example, let's take adrenals. What is the purpose of adrenals? What do adrenals do, right?
Help us mount a response to stress?
Right. So thank you for answering that. So they release cortisol and adrenaline, right, for when we need to get up, to get stuff going. If it's a big flow of this hormones, that means we're in a stressful situation, right? So let's go backwards. So the cortisol is released by the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands don't decide on their own that they need to release cortisol, right? It's the brain who gives the message to the adrenals. Now, how does the brain decide if you need to release cortisol or not? It's the situation you're in that basically the brain decides that we need some power, right? We need to flee. We need to run away. So I'm going to use this example. A lot of people use this. I mean, everybody probably heard it, but imagine in the wild, right? One long time ago. And then you met face to face with a tiger. Then you needed this. So this wasn't mean. This wasn't bad. This is not your enemy, right? You needed this. So imagine you wake up every day with this tiger in your face, and now you have to release this cortisol every day and adrenaline. Now, this is where the problem is. This is where the problem lays, right? And we don't see that in our life. We actually see the tiger every day. We don't see this. We get so caught up with, I don't know, taking care of kids and the demanding spouse, a demanding job, a demanding business, right? And we don't want to, a solution would be, I'm just going to walk away from all of this, right? Then that process of the adrenals will stop. But that's not the solution. We don't want to do this. So actually in what I do, we work with clients on changing their perception or their reaction to things. So either you leave this work or you change your reaction, your perception, your emotion towards this thing. So then even if you are in this situation, you're not going to have to turn on your adrenals.
That makes sense. Interesting. Yeah. And that's maybe if you can't communicate with your coworkers or your managers or your partner or whatever, right? And then that might be a case to leave. But if you're able to interact with the people that you're getting this response from, right, then you could change it, like you said.
Right. But also, this actually doesn't necessarily have to come from you communicating with them. It's from you inside of you, right? It's how you feel about the situation. And see, even I understand, and even in my work and working with people, I understand that this is something that people it's not easy for them to understand. How can you say that instead of me feeling rage, I don't have to feel it? And I say, yes, you don't have to feel it. And we can teach you to have a different reaction to the same situation. If it was rage, then it could be a different emotion. And most of the time it's just the easiness, it's just people become light. They don't even need any kind of emotion to react.
Is that the basis of psychosomatic coaching?
Yes, exactly. Is to teach the person to have a different reaction. And we know that for the brain, not for us, right? Time doesn't exist. For your unconscious mind, time doesn't exist. So as you went through trauma 20 years ago, people who remember it, they will remember it as if it was here now. They will have the same, bodily reaction to it. So what I do is I help my clients learn how to remember that, but not react again to it. The memory is there. We don't delete any memory, but you are not going to react to it again in a bad way, in a way where it's not good for your body.
Is there a connection with dreaming? Because I got into that when I was like 11 or 12 years old and got on a lucid dreaming forum and started making a text file and a dream journal on my computer and logged like over 100 dreams. And I remember one of the most exciting things about it was having nightmares and then realizing that I'm dreaming and then change it. And I would wake up feeling different. Like I would wake up feeling so much lighter. And when I was just listening to you talk about that, it reminded me of that process. And I think it was Adam on my show said that, nightmares and night stallions, he has all these different names for bad dreams, that dreams in general are a way for us to process trauma. But what's your thoughts on all that?
Yes, absolutely. Dreams is our innate therapy. That's why I'm so obsessed with REM sleep, as you know, right? And I'm doing all these experiments to fix that particular part of my sleep. And when we dream, the interesting thing is that a lot of people pay attention to the story in the dream, right? But the story in the dream, the interesting part is that there's an emotion to it, right? As you said, I felt lighter. How did you feel in the dream when it started? Not lighter, right? So while the dream was going on, you felt lighter. So it's like a therapy. So, for example, I notice that when I go through something throughout the day that I didn't express, right, where I didn't show maybe road rage, right? There's somebody cutting me off, or I don't know. I don't really get very aggravated on road, but sometimes it happens. So if I am not able to express, meaning that I can't catch that person and say, why did you cut me off, right? Then I will dream that night, and the dream will have a different picture completely, a different story, a different movie. But when I look at the emotions that I experienced when I was raging on the road, and the emotion in the dream is exact same emotion. So the dream is, your brain is starting that process to close it, to give you a closure. And people who suffer from PTSD, a lot of times with nightmares, what happens is that nightmare is so loaded with emotions, it wakes them up. So it cuts off the cycle. Now they have to start it again tomorrow.
Wow. Is there a fix to
that? Yes, there is a fix to to work on the trauma and the emotion that was created with that trauma.
And you can use, would it be psychosomatic coaching or hypnotherapy or both?
Well, I use both with psychosomatic coaching. If with some people I can't turn off the chatter in their head, right? And hypnotherapy is just a way for us to concentrate on something in particular, right? When you're hypnotized, when you watch a movie, it's that what it is. You're just watching just that movie and try to talk to you, right? Hey, Matt, what do you think of this? Just leave me alone, right? I want to watch this movie. So it's the exact same thing. I use hypnosis for this, just to make the person completely relaxed and be completely concentrating on this one thing.
Wow. So why are you hypnotized when you watch a movie? Is it a combination of the flickering screen and what's going on there?
It's just a narrowing of your concentration, right? It's making you so interested in this that you are just concentrated on this. What's added after, I don't know what's behind the screen and stuff like that. That's not, I don't know that, right? I don't catch it when I watch a movie. I don't, they put a suggestion in, it's right there, right? I'm not sure, but yeah, I understand your question.
Well, it's interesting what you said about rapid eye movement, sleep. I think we both use the Oura ring. I just put it on an airplane mode at night, but I might start trying to wear it during the day. I just don't like having stuff on me. But you're recently sharing your coffee experiment, and your goal is to get longer REM sleep, right? And so you took a break from coffee to see if it would help.
Yeah. So I did a genome program. I don't remember the name of it. And it showed that I might have an enzyme of the liver that doesn't clear out properly, or I don't have the enzyme. One of the two. I either have it or I don't have it. That doesn't clear the coffee out of my system as fast as other people's, right? I can't, if I drink coffee today at 6 p.m., guaranteed I will not fall asleep until tomorrow, 6 a.m. So I'm trying to not drink any caffeine after 10 a.m. already. But I thought maybe it's still affecting me. So I did that experiment for 10 days. I didn't drink coffee. At the beginning, it was horrible. I hated my days. The days were tough and stuff. But then I got used to it, but my sleep didn't change. So I still kept waking up from REM, and it interrupts the REM cycle. And if you notice, an interesting thing is if you look at someone who is sleeping in REM stage and someone who is under the hypnosis, you'll realize that they look very similar. There's rapid eye movement under the lids, and they're paralyzed, basically not paralyzed, but they can't move. They're not moving. Their bodies are not moving in both of them.
Interesting. Wow. Yeah, I've been experimenting with the the Lucia light. I'm going to have a show on it, the flashing lights. And they have it at some like float, sensory deprivation float chamber spas. I've seen it where they combine it, which I think they're complementary. Because one's super stimulation, the other one's no stimulation. But they call it hypnagogic trance that you get in with the flashing rhythmic lights, really bright in your face. And I've noticed when I'm under those lights, my eyes will blink really fast. So I'm like, maybe it's kind of like REM. I don't know. But I think, yeah, this REM thing's overlooked because a lot of people probably aren't getting proper REM sleep, and then they're not processing their traumas, right?
Exactly. They're not processing their trauma for that day also. And also if there's something that's continuous, maybe started a couple months ago, like a rewiring dream, then also that too is not processed.
Have you combined anything else with your coffee experiment, like taking like glycine or supplements or meditating or sprinting before bed or anything else?
I do look at the sun first thing in the morning. Recently, I started looking at the sun when it's sunset. So I haven't been able to do that because we were out traveling, but I'm doing that. Also glycine. I tried lion's mane. It helped me for one day only. It didn't help me the rest. Also very important is temperature in the room and body temperature. And a lot of times I just wake up, either I'm very hot or very cold, because there's no thermoregulation in REM sleep. So your body doesn't warm itself up, right, when you sleep. It's just there. So if it's cold, you're going to be cold, and then the brain's going to get the signal and it's going to wake you up so you can warm up. I tried a lot of things, probably about 30 things, everything I tried. One of the things that helped me a lot, immensely, I heard this person on Instagram talking about how if your body is lacking nutrients, right, and you might have allergic reactions, intolerances, and the liver is not going to be happy, and this and that, So this person's you. I don't know why I'm going around, but you, right? And then you were talking about sugar, and I said, no, this is too crazy for me, sugar, because I didn't eat sugar for more than 10 years, or dairy, right? So I said, I'm going to start with honey. So I started taking honey. The first couple of days, it was an adjustment, right? My body was shocked. What is this amount of sugar? Imagine I was only eating green apples and berries. So it was too much sugar. Then it got used to it. My body got used to it. And I would go to sleep and I would take a spoon of honey, and I noticed that I didn't wake up as much, and I loved it. And I still do that. It's definitely something that has to do with sugar in my case, in my body. And another benefit was that I suffered with panic attacks a couple of years ago. And because I started eating sugar, my body became stronger. So now I was more resilient to stress and to this panics and the anxiety in between. And the more I ate, I actually had to include a lot of food, and I suffered with orthorexia. And because of you, really, I started eating, right? And I don't even know how I didn't think about it. I should have thought about it myself, right? Imagine this: if you're starving, if you're hungry, and you haven't eaten in 2 days, the normal stress will not seem normal to you. You'll have an overreaction. And I wasn't eating for months, really months. No sugar, no nothing. I was eating cucumbers, rice, chicken, parsley, and not even spices or anything. So thank you. I just want to say thank you very much for this. So that's the thing I tried, and now I went on to talking about panic attacks.
Well, we didn't hear about your story of how you got into all this stuff and interested in emotions and psychosomatic coaching and hypnotherapy. Was it your own panic attacks that led to this kind of journey rabbit hole?
That's a good question, because I always wanted to do hypnosis. I was always interested in this. Things like manipulation, just to understand them, if I'm being manipulated, all of these things. So then I was working at my job, and my previous job was very demanding, and I really liked it. So I was putting in a lot of hours. I wasn't eating properly. I became very weak. At some point, I decided to take a vacation, to take the hypnosis course. And while I was taking the hypnosis course, I thought that this is it. So I quit. I quit my job, and I went into an unknown journey, right? And in a couple of months, actually, I finished hypnosis in August. And in October, I developed panic attacks. And then from there, in between, I studied NLP too. And then from there, I was concentrating on the panic attacks, because when they hit you, you're not ready. And you don't know what to expect. And you probably know that they're going to happen any moment, right? They can hit you in the middle of the night. And because I had the hypnosis and all of this kind of knowledge, I went into breathing exercises. I did Wim Hof, which wasn't a good idea, because it made me that kind of breathing intensified my panic. And my mistake was that I was doing it. I was breathing like that, intensely breathing, while I was having a panic attack to calm me down. So that was a mistake. Don't do that at home. That's not good. But definitely the cold showers helped me. They did help me to build resilience to stress, to kind of what it did is it made me be able to control how I feel about the cold, right? And then when I was experiencing panic attacks, it's kind of almost like similar. It's a stress on your body. So you kind of learn to control the intensity of the stress. So I couldn't find the answers to the panic attacks. And at ER, they told me it's just panic attacks. And I didn't go to ER again because it was too expensive, to go cash. So I tried a lot of things. Plus, I tried all of the things that I mentioned before, EMDR and all of those things. And it only kind of sealed the deal, and really helped me bring myself back to normal is when I found the psychosomatic relation and reason behind a panic attack, and why do I need it, and why the body does it. And you kind of understand that reason why a panic attack started.
You mentioned EMDR a few times. I haven't ever looked into that. It looks like it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Is that a way of reliving trauma? Or?
So when I did it, with my therapist, we talked about my mom passing away when I was 19 years old. So I would tell her the story, but then this time I would have to I would have to look from side to side, and she would show me where to look, kind of, and then this way it kind of dissociates the emotion from the picture. So it really helped. It was very good for me at that moment, but I also needed some kind of tools for my own understanding, because from there were a lot of things that I dealt with, and I kind of learning psychosomatic coaching. And this is what I find a lot of my clients do. Once we have one session, even, or two or three, depending on the situation, they learn to control that emotion, right? It's like almost like building a tool or finding the tool to move forward. So even if there's another situation just as traumatizing, you might not actually experience it in the same way that you experienced it the first time.
Wow. I've kind of a random question for you. A couple days ago, I had this thought. Because Adam Bergstrom's really into color recycling, and the idea that, I guess, whenever you have a traumatic thing happen to you, you automatically assign a color to it, whether it's red or orange or blue or green or whatever. And by working with that color, you could work through the trauma. And I think I was meditating on that, and I was thinking about music and music that I grew up with. And a lot of it was Neil Young and The Cure, like The Cure when I was really young, and then Neil Young later on. And I had this thought, like, what if, and some of the memories were good and some were like stressful. I was like, what if I listened to these bands that I grew up with? Is that a way to kind of relive or process the events that I went through in my childhood? Does any of that make sense to you?
Yes, absolutely. It's a trigger, right? So if you were going through something in your childhood, even your childhood, right, has a sound, has a song. There's songs that my father was listening to, these Russian singers, that if I hear it now, I automatically would feel like I'm there, like I'm that person, like I'm that old, 5 years old, right, or 6 years old. So by listening to these songs, did you say they were good memories or bad memories? It was traumatic experiences, or the things?
It was a mix. Not to get too personal, Neil Young was probably stressful, and The Cure was very happy.
So I would use this as I would say that I would use them interchangeably, right? So I would use the happy song, but I would remember the not happy memories. So now they're linked together the opposite way. Now the happy song is linked to the I don't want to say bad memories, but to the memories you don't want to, they're not the best, for example.
That's interesting. Yeah, because people can work with you, but there's a lot of things they could do, or we could do on our own by ourselves, right? Like I've heard you can hypnotize yourself, right? And I guess we do it all the time, right?
Yes. I work with my therapist a lot too, because I actually don't skip it. I'm on time all the time with this, because I can't understand somebody when I'm not fully worked on, right? And I do this, and then whenever she says, "Okay, let's start," I'm already almost there. Already. She doesn't even have to go through the induction. I'm hypnotized, and she always says to me, "Stop! Wait! Don't go so fast!" Because I'm gone. I'm ready. I'm ready to work. But you can also, if this could be used as a tool to help yourself, to dehypnotize, I would say, dehypnotize yourself. And actually, I wanted to add to this dehypnotize thing. Panic attacks is also a very highly suggestible state, right? And a lot of things like orthorexia originate from there, because I started having problems with eating a few panics in, right? So then when I realized that I'm kind of, I stopped eating everything. Then with eating, with kind of my brain clearing up, right? I started thinking backwards. How this started, and eating is a huge part of our lives. We eat 3 times a day, 5 times a day. We snack, right? So imagine I'm going through a panic attack, and then a few hours later, I'm eating, but I'm also anxious, and I'm eating. So this food is going to be linked to this emotion, to the anxious emotion, right? And imagine that food has 20 ingredients, and then next time I see this meal, and my brain says, don't eat it because you're going to feel like that. And it's almost like your brain is trying to protect you from that emotion, but it doesn't understand that you're stopped eating completely. There's people that have stopped eating for years and years. I had a client, she didn't eat nothing except 4 to 5 ingredients for 2 years. For 2 years. Mine wasn't that long, but for 2 years. So talking about, the minerals and vitamins in the body, and that body's capability of fighting stress or going through stress and panic attacks.
So does that mean you shouldn't watch like horror movies or scary movies while you eat, because you'll associate like fear or tension with like spaghetti or whatever you're eating?
Absolutely. This is actually how a lot of intolerances and allergies create, right? So, for example, kids, until they're 7 years old, depending on the child, 6, 7 years old, they're in this highly suggestible state, hypnotizable. That's why they're able to learn so many languages at once, right? And I know families that the child speaks 3 languages because the mother speaks one language, the father speaks another language, and then America. So the child speaks 3 languages, and it's a 5-year-old. So in a state like that, if your parents are fighting somewhere where there's something going on, somewhere in the room, right? Something scary, and you're eating an orange, you're probably going to be intolerant to that orange. If if you hear your parents fighting, or you hear a loud explosion or a loud noise. So this is how it's linked. It's almost like your nervous system is trying to save you next time.
Wow. And a lot of those events people could not even remember, right? And then they'll just think that they can't figure out why they're allergic to a food.
Exactly. Most of these events they don't remember. Even when you're going through panic attacks and you have orthorexia, a lot of these times when you made that link, you're not going to remember, because when you're scared, and this is one thing that I want to emphasize, when you experience a panic attack, it's very hard to be aware, right? But don't believe everything you hear around you, and don't even believe yourself. Sometimes it's like, oh, this food is bad. No, it's not. You've been eating this for 30 years, 40 years, and now all of a sudden it's bad. So you made the suggestion to yourself. And later, because of the level of your state of mind, right? Because of how suggestible you are, like almost hypnotized, right? Then you're consciously might not be able to recall when you did that, when you gave yourself this suggestion.
Wow. Yeah, but something I've been thinking about for the last 10 years was medical diagnosis. And I think Adam recommended a book. I can't remember what it was, Medical Nemesis or something, or there's been books on this subject, how just a doctor diagnosing you with a physical illness, it's like casting a spell, right? Like I've been thinking about that for years. And people make it a part of their story and they identify it with it. I have diabetes, I have psoriasis, I have eczema, I have acne, whatever it is. And it becomes such a part of their identity that it's almost bigger than the actual physical cause of the illness, right?
Yes. With diagnosis, also when the doctor gives the diagnosis, they might also unwillingly, unknowingly give you a suggestion like this is incurable, or you will never walk again, and because you are in this heightened fear state, you're not able to think, critically think, right? Logically think and say, no, I've seen cases when people walked, this is not my story. You receive that as truth. And now there is a diagnosis that you have to deal with. And then there's this heavy load of emotion added to it that you may never walk again. So this is very tough for some people. It actually it holds them back, this emotion. It holds them back from moving forward and finding solutions because they're convinced they're not going to even find a solution.
Wow. And maybe some of the suggestions that they get from the doctor, they immediately forget, right? Because they're so traumatic.
Exactly.
So what do they do then? They come to you and
we undo
what happens
it.
then?
Yeah, we try to undo it, right? Basically, the way it would go, we would have a session where we go into that moment when they received the diagnosis and work on them receiving the diagnosis. From what place they want to receive the diagnosis? From fear, from weakness, from whatever they decide what they want to do instead and how they want to proceed from there.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. So panic attack. So how did you heal from that? Was it through all the stuff that you teach basically? Like,
yes. So through the stuff that I teach, through finding the first time when this occurred and why it occurred, right? What my mind thought I needed this panic attack for, right? And then from there, I started to rebuild my body and my strength. There were times when I would wake up in the morning and walk to the kitchen, and that's it. That was all the energy I had for the day. I couldn't function at all. Now I'm a normal functioning human being. I have energy. I don't even yawn in the evening anymore. I used to starting 6 p.m. I would yawn. I couldn't stop yawning, really. It was annoying because I couldn't, watch a movie because I had to yawn and close my eyes when yawning, So, and I think you mentioned this on one of your podcasts. What is yawning? Excessive yawning?
Yeah, a way to process trauma. And yeah, I can relate. Like when I was working jobs that I didn't really want to work and doing things just generally that I didn't want to do, just to make money or whatever, I felt more tired. And then when I started working for myself and now we're 100% of the time doing what I want to do, I automatically I have more energy and feel so much lighter just from that.
Exactly. This is an interesting point you make, that with the adrenal fatigue, when I had adrenal fatigue, I had it for this exact reason, because I was working full time on my job, yet the job that I would have wanted, my perfect life, right, career, I didn't have it. So I was wasting all my energy without any kind of receiving any kind of positive energy back. So I wasn't replenishing it. So basically, almost like my adrenals were working 2 times harder to support me with energy. So they say that adrenal fatigue is also related to kind of what they say is that you got on the wrong horse, right? So this would be the adrenal fatigue. You got on the wrong horse.
Got on the wrong horse. Like, could you elaborate on that?
Yes, that you started a job that you don't want to work on, right? Where you're doing something that you don't want to do, but you have to do. And when the right horse is just standing there somewhere and you're looking at it, but you're not doing anything about it.
Interesting. Wow. And you said that, I think it was before we started recording, that our organs could help us, our organs and glands can help us process emotions. Because I've been thinking about this for years, that you could work from the inside out or the outside in or both. And things like herbs and minerals and vitamins and macronutrients and calories, all of that supports our organs and glands. Like, for example, the liver with anger, right? Like if you give it choline every day and sugar and vitamin E and K2 and stuff, it does work both ways, right? Where that helps you process what's stored in the liver.
Exactly. So you can heal your body either through your mind, right? Because in a lot of cases, that's how it got there. You had some kind of problem you dealt with in your head, and now the adrenals are giving you more energy, right? Or you can go through your body and give the nutrients to the adrenals, the nutrients that adrenals use, right? And there's a lot of them, a lot. And that's how at some point the body just gets depleted because you are not getting out of the situation. So you're absolutely right about that you can go through the body or through the head to heal it. And to answer the first part of your question, the way I look at it, right, is with adrenal fatigue, for example, if I need more energy and I'm in a situation where my brain says that it needs more energy, then adrenals are going to produce this energy for me, right? So I don't look at my adrenals when I had adrenal fatigue, not anymore. I used to look at it as my enemy because I was thinking, wow, I have adrenal fatigue and this is so bad because I'm exhausted. But if you look at it, adrenals were there for you and it worked properly when you needed it. When I needed that extra energy, they were there for me, right? And there are situations, there's a lot of situations that different organs can help us. Like, for example, as we talked before, the thyroid gland. What are the situations that thyroid glands can help us?
When we need more energy or need things to work faster.
Yeah, faster or slow down, right? We need to be faster, we need to be slower. And with thyroid, what I find is that a lot of people with thyroid, one of the conflicts, emotional conflict, right? A possible one could be that they live either in the future in their head or in the past, right? So if it's in the future, hyper and hypo, right? So in the future, meaning that, and I used to be like this, interestingly enough, when I will have this, I will be happy. I will only be happy when I get married. Oh, my life will change when I get married. Right now, I'm on pause, but when I will be happy in 2-3 years, I will be happy in 2-3 years when I have this. And a lot of people that live in their past, in their heads, I should have done it like this. I should have done my life like that. They're happy to be there than here, right? So they remember their younger years. And I used to be younger and more agile and more happy, and now not. So that would be a time when the brain would say, okay, I guess I need to improve this function or accelerate the function of the thyroid.
Wow, just from having those perspectives instead of being present.
Right. So one of the things that I mentioned before to you, that if there was one thing that I would give advice to my family, right, it would be to never go to sleep with something like this in your mind, something that you haven't finished, right? Because you don't want to start a function in your body for no reason.
It's interesting because I was talking to my friend on the phone the other day, and she was saying with her partner, he can go to sleep, when they have an unfinished argument, but she can't. And that seems like a pretty common thing in relationships. I'm definitely the type where sleep is the highest priority, and I get stressed if something's forcing me to stay up late, no matter what it is. Like the world could be meteors could be falling down on the house, and I just want to sleep to get some energy.
So the interesting thing is about sleep is that after my mom passed away, my circadian cycle completely changed. I used to go to sleep at 5 a.m. for just 5 a.m. I couldn't sleep before that. And one of the reasons for that is when I received the news that she passed, it was early in the morning. They woke me up. So a neighbor that we were friends with, he came over to my house, and I was sleeping, and he woke me up, and he started crying right away because it was tough for him to give me the news. I was 18 years old. So then he said, 18, 19. So then he said, your mom passed, and this was the most devastating news I've ever received. Now, when I'm going to sleep, right, I don't want to go to sleep because unconsciously I'm afraid that I will get those news. And I don't think about it, right? It's not like, okay, I'm not going to go to sleep because I'm going to wake up and I'm going to have bad news. It's unconscious. It's discovered through hypnosis and working with someone specifically, right? So when I worked on myself, this is what I discovered. So a lot of people, they have a hard time with sleeping or going to sleep for similar reasons. Something happened at night. They consider the night as being not good, right? And it also could be just the educational. Like my parents taught me to not go to sleep until I fix, the air in the house, right? So if, let's say, your friend, she doesn't want to sleep, she can't go to sleep, is because that conversation hyped her up too much. She's on too much alert, right? It's hard for her to go to sleep when she's pumping cortisol and adrenaline.
Interesting. So why did you say never go to sleep with something? You said something that you haven't finished?
Right. So if there is a uncomfortable situation, a fight, or just an uncomfortable conversation, right? You don't want to let that person go to sleep in that state. And you don't want to go to sleep in that state yourself either, right? You just want to fix this, to come to a conclusion, to come to a closure, to kind of, sometimes if it's impossible to solve that day, then you can just agree that tomorrow you were going to start from over again, but no fighting before sleep.
Yeah, it seems like there's just so many things that that can affect it. And I think what you just talked about with your mom can be really overlooked because we'll stuff down those memories, right? Or a lot of people will. And that could be like the root of their insomnia or waking up throughout the night or whatever.
Right. Exactly. And a lot of times it's coffee too, right? People just overuse coffee. Really, they do. But a lot of times, there's an interesting thing about these things is that sometimes this person will drink coffee so they don't go to sleep on time, because they have that program, they have that understanding that if they go to sleep, something bad will happen or they will receive bad news. So they almost unconsciously, unpurposely drink that coffee that late.
Wow. I mean, last night, funny story, I drank it, I think at 7 p.m. and I went to bed at, I think it was 10:30. And according to my Oura ring, I slept amazing. So I guess there's specific situations, but maybe it goes back to what you said, like slow and fast oxidizer and how fast you process the caffeine. I'm pretty sure I'm a fast oxidizer.
I could never do this. If I do this, I'm sure I'll be awake for a long time. I could never do this. I'm very impressed by this, because if somehow accidentally I drink it at 11 a.m. caffeine, that's it. I'm done. I know that I will struggle and I will not be able to fall asleep on time, and I'll just toss and turn and all of that stuff. Yeah, it's not good for me.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard stories of people even drinking it in the middle of the night when they wake up is like a sleep aid, and that worked. So it's probably a super individual thing, and maybe it's tied to trauma. Maybe there's a beneficial memory attached to coffee that it can help.
Yeah, maybe. I'll look into it. One thing I know for sure that I noticed since I have Oura, my panics started in October, right? And since I have Oura, I'm able to trace 2 Octobers ago, and this October and last October. And I can see that my HRV is low for the last month or so, right? And last year, it was low all throughout November. So it's almost like my body knows, hey, what's up? Is the season of panic attacks. And it's putting me in high alert. And high alert means histamine. Or you can look at it the opposite way. If you're in high alert, you'll have histamine, right? Releasing through your body. So now I'm in high alert. I'm not sleeping well. I'm in fight or flight. And coffee will definitely add to this jitteriness, to nervousness, so being able to kind of see this in the sessions, working on myself with my therapist, then we can actually take out the suggestion for my body, because my body unconsciously from me, remember we talked about this, I showed you my HRV and it was very low, and I even had an allergic reaction to B3 that I accidentally took, which I knew I can't take because I'm going to have a flush, right? Because it was the wrong type of B3. So I went through a 20-minute of intense allergic reaction, looked like, right? And then I related the low HRV to that, but then I looked back at last year and it was there also. So, these gadgets are interesting. And it's also interesting how my body is preparing me for it linked to the season, to the months, right? So it prepared me for another panic season, but I'm not having it. And consciously, I'm not aware of it. I'm doing fine. I'm not stressed, but my body's stats are very low. My sleep is low. My HRV is low. My eating is low, because in fight or flight, you don't have appetite too much. You're not thinking about eating, right? So I slow down my eating. So because of that, I started forcing myself to eat, because I was eating 900 calories a day. So I'm forcing myself to eat to 2,000. It's very tough for me, especially being in fight or flight. But, I'm dealing with this, and it's an interesting journey.
What I often tell people is to do liquids, although that's, counter to what you'll hear from the metabolic health community. It's to me, it's the most practical thing, is just to do liquids if you don't have absolutely zero appetite, just to get that fire going with fruit juice and bone broth. Like, have your sugar, have your animal protein. And even if you're not hungry at all, you could still drink and get nutrients that way. But for people that aren't aware, HRV stands or is heart rate variability, as we've been talking about, but it's the space in between the heartbeats, which should be variable, which means they shouldn't be equal spaces. They actually change, right? And as people work with you and do hypnotherapy and psychosomatic coaching, have you seen that go up in clients, the HRV actually increase?
I actually don't have a lot of clients who actually have Oura yet. So I'm not able to see that, but I'm watching on my Oura, right? And one of the things that I thought it could be is that I had a pretty intense therapy session before the HRV started. And when the HRV goes really low or really high, that can be a sign of recovery. Basically, your body uses all your resources to recover from something, right? And I thought that session was it, because it was very intense for me. I shattered a lot of emotions, and it left me just squeezed of all of my energy. I just laid there for an hour. She just hung up the Zoom call, and I just laid there with my eyes. I couldn't even move. That's how much of a work it is. And and I had to drink liquids. And I noticed that when I drink liquids, juice, and even if I don't have an appetite, I take a few sips, And then I think my body says, oh, I like this. And then it actually opens my appetite and I'm able to eat.
Wow. Have you had success with like cranial sacral therapy or massage? Because I've had some pretty profound emotional reactions to both of those, especially massage in particular. Like deep tissue massage created a lot of movement in my emotional body. What are your thoughts on that?
When I used to, at my previous job, I used to go to chiropractor once a week, and it was helping me. And I used to go to massage also once a week. It really helped. But the thing is, I couldn't turn off my brain. I couldn't turn off my brain to that specific thought that was causing this tension in my neck or in my back, right? So only when I learned, or when I created for myself this new strategy of thinking, that's when actually this pain actually stopped and I don't have it anymore. So you could go through the body, right? And it's great. You have to do this. You have to release the tension in your body. And a lot of times it helps. A lot of times it could be just from driving, but the pain and the tension. So massage and adjustment that the chiropractor can help. But if it's requiring, and you understand that it's just too much, you have to go too much too often, then you might want to look into the emotional part of it. What are you holding there?
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, before we started recording, you said it's usually easier for us to see or to notice the physical reason for an illness than the emotional reason.
Yes, exactly. It's when I work with my clients, right? We there's an exercise that I do with my clients where I have them check in with their physical body's reaction to almost everything around them. So I have them imagine that there's they're sitting on the chair. Well, they're sitting on the chair, and then imagine that next to them there's another chair, and then there's, let's say, the spouse in the chair, or the work, or the business, a snake, right? Just to kind of see the difference of how your body actually has a different reaction to everything. You might not be aware of it, but your body, your physical body, will react to it. And a lot of times we just don't allow ourselves to say, I have this reaction to my spouse, or I have this reaction to my coworker, or to my boss, or to my work in general, right? Or I'm having a negative reaction just by being in this house. I noticed, and right away I cleared all my closet, that there's a spot on the couch here that I used to sit when I used to have my panic attacks. That would be the easiest part of me to sit. And then I stopped having the panic attacks. A few months later, I kind of sat in the same way on the couch, which is a weird way. Like, it's not a regular way, right? I sat on it, and in a couple of seconds, I realized that my heartbeat goes up. And I got up, I jumped up. I'm like, no, I don't need this. My brain took a picture of everything, right? And it's like, oh, you hear, okay, then this is when you're experiencing a panic attack. So, your body has a memory or a reaction to everything and everyone. And if you're, I think I forgot the initial question.
No, that was good. You made me think, like, during dreaming, or like, I remember my hypnotherapy session, my heart was beating out of my chest, just being in that experience that the therapist was guiding me through. And so that's proof right there, either with hypnotherapy or just dreaming every night, that our physiology changes, and our heart rate and our blood pressure and everything,
Even
just
breath.
by, yeah. Oh, breath too. Yeah.
Yes. It's actually, there's a book, it's called How Emotions Are Made. And if you pay attention to this the emotions are made by us, right? And in that book, the author talks about how they put a device on her. They were working in a lab, and they put a device that measures the heartbeat on her work, on the person that works in the office. And one day she opened the door, and she was, I think, the owner of the lab, right? So she opened the door, and the device on the other person went on, just beeping, because the heartbeat went up, right? So we have reactions like this that we are not necessarily aware, but they're very, very intense, and they're there, you know, they're dictating our what we do and how we do things, because we do it from that emotion.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Do you want to jump into some questions? Because we had quite a few that came in, and I think a lot of them, you said that they're so individual and there's so much context that you would have to work with them one-on-one. Like there's no real blanket answer to a lot of the questions, but one that we got is, how do I deal with the trauma I don't remember?
So how do you know there's trauma, right? There's probably some kind of emotion there also with the trauma. And what's interesting is that a lot of people, they block the memory from the emotion. But in hypnosis, we can actually possibly access that memory that's linked to that emotion. And we can also work with the emotion itself only. So that would be a way.
That makes sense. Let me see if there's any good ones here. That's funny. Pros and cons of using cannabis to help anxiety. Yeah, because people self-medicate with a lot of different things, right? Whether it's conventional toxic cigarettes or toxic beers or cannabis or whatever drugs. Most people are just medicating, right, to deal with what we've been talking about.
Right. So I personally only tried CBD a couple of weeks ago for the first time. And I didn't feel, because I was in fight or flight, right? I didn't feel much of a difference actually. So I stopped, because I'd rather work on the reason why I feel like this in the first place than to just seal it and band-aid it. But if you don't have an opportunity to work on the reason and actually stop this anxiety or panic attacks from happening again, then what helps, whatever helps you, right? And I don't have experience with weed in general for panic attacks, but I would probably not do it, because I stopped eating when I was having panic attacks. Like, forget about substances like this in general completely.
Have you looked into disassociation? Because that, it seems like that happens after trauma, and I've also seen it happen after heavy psychedelic use. You ever gone down that rabbit hole?
I also didn't try, never any kind of psychedelics. I want to, how Wim Hof says, I'm getting high on my own supply. I have some stacks of my own supply of getting high. But dissociation, it's also, it sounds like it's not individual, but it's also highly individual how this person does it and what they do, and how they do it and for what they do this, right? Because the situation could be very different situations why they do this, why they dissociate. So some of my clients, I am for all the modalities, right? If I could be certified in them all, I would be certified in all of them, because I think all of them can be helpful for different people, right? I have a client, we've had 6 sessions and we can't finish it, but he insists on doing the sessions with me, which I understand. A lot of times we just do relaxation exercises, right? But in situations like this, when a person doesn't want to tap into the trauma and dissociate from it because it's so painful, right? Then other tools can be helpful. With me, with what I do, we almost have to go into it again. And I know a lot of people don't want to do this, but a lot of people actually see a tremendous benefit, including me, that I went through it once and I changed the strategy and I look at it differently and I unlinked the emotion from the memory.
Mm. So in your perspective, you have to relive the experience to process the trauma or the emotion?
Not necessarily, right? So the way I like to talk about this is that if you are like me and you try everything and nothing helps, is because you just need to know how this thing works, right? I'm going to overthink and think and think. And with the psychosomatic coaching, I found where to look into this problem that I had, right? Me personally. And then I found the problem and then I solved it, right? I gave myself a new reaction to things and obviously in therapy. So there's people that are unable to relieve this. It's just too painful. And the interesting thing about this is just like panic attacks, a person who is experiencing a panic attack, their fear, a lot of fear comes from the fact that you can't control yourself. There's something going on in your body and there's so many things, blood pressure, vision, you almost hearing louder, right? You're sensitive to noises. Your heart is beating out of control. It's a weakness in your feet, some sweating, all of this stuff like digestive issues, right? So all of these things, when they happen and you're not able to control them, this scares people, right? So building back the control over your body is important. So when someone who's experienced a very deep trauma, it's almost like their unconscious mind turns on this panicky behavior that doesn't let them access it. You know, it's almost like your nervous system says, no, I'm sorry, but I'm going to not let you go in there. So because of that, I believe in other modalities that can go through the body, actually, not through the mind, you know, and do somatic work, all kinds of somatic work. And there's so many that are really good.
That was awesome. Have you ever experienced energy work, like energy healing? Someone asked. I did like 2 Reiki classes, and I was never good at it, but I think I had it done probably 10 or 15 times, and it was really only 2 or 3 times where I think a woman put their hands on each side of my head, and it was very strong. It was like wearing one of my cranial electrical stimulation devices on that level of intensity, or maybe even stronger. Just having her hands on each side of my head. So I know that it's real to some degree, but I was curious if you've ever experienced it or.
I did. I have a close friend. She does emotion code. And whenever we do emotion code, she does it on me and I do my type of sessions on her. We just kind of work on each other. And when she does it on me, I absolutely feel it. You know, it also depends a lot on the therapist also, right? And what state of where are they in that moment, right? And when they're working on you. So she's great at this. And I do feel a release of emotions, right? And I don't want to say that emotion code is not good because it's great. But there's one thing why, let's say, if I have the option, I would take my types of session, my type of therapist, the psychosomatic coaching, because in my sessions, I also learn to react differently to the same situation. So if in the past I had a traumatic situation that creating a buildup of emotions, right? We take them out with emotion code, but then if tomorrow the same thing happens again, then I will build it again. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So with what I do is almost like I'm reteaching myself, okay, so for this kind of situation, I have a resourceful state from where I react without creating trauma, again, without creating this built up of emotions on me. So this is the only difference between these two, I would say. Well, except the fact that, in the emotion code, we don't have to pretty much talk to each other, right? But in my sessions, we have to talk to each other. I have to learn about you a little bit, just so there's a lot of power and hidden meaning in the words we say. Although they sound like we say words, right? But actually the meaning in them is very interesting, is very powerful. And on this topic, I want to mention Mark Wallen's generational trauma. I read the book, and immediately I did the course. And, the things I discovered there were maybe another hour of conversation.
What's the name of the book again?
The book.
So it's
Mark Wallen. Let me see. The name of the book is something with trauma, I think. Generational trauma.
Mark Wallen.
Oh, it's called It Didn't Start With You.
Oh, okay. Didn't start. Oh, here we go. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes along with the other book, How Emotions Are Made.
Yes, absolutely.
You seem really good. Someone asked, how do I get out of my head? Say breath. Wim Hof.
Good question. How do I get out of my head? Why do you want to get out of there? Everything's happening in there. You don't want to leave.
Let me see. Yeah, someone asked about addictions, and what causes addictions. Would you say it's the same thing we were saying earlier, where it's just almost like things that distract or numb out?
Or almost like replenish the emotion that you're missing, right? So some addictions can be traced back to a break in the bond with a parent. Some addictions could be traced back to a break in the bond in your parents' relationship with their parent, and then it's kind of it passes on to you as a way of coping with that reality.
Wow. Do you think that could be passed on like generationally, like in like the cellular memory?
Actually, in this book, I think he mentions that it's up to 6 generations that they actually saw that on mice, or where they were doing research, that this kind of information can get passed through generations. So on this specific about generations, I have my own story. If we have 3 minutes, I can say. So when I was listening to the book initially, there was a story about panic attacks, which caught my attention. This person was 19 years old, and it started when they were 19 years old, right? So there's a specific way. I'm not going to get into details of how to check and how to do this. It's a whole session with specific questions and everything. So I started thinking about when my panic attacks started. They started when I was 33 years old, right? So I was thinking, who died in my family when they were 33, or what happened in my family when that person was 33, let's say, right? And I'm not a believer right away. I see something and I believe it right away. I have to do research. So I asked my dad, my dad, his mom passed away when my dad was 16. So this was, my grandmother, I never saw, obviously he was 16 years old. So I never knew her. I knew my grandfather's wife, which I considered as my grandmother. So we never talked about this. And I asked my dad, I said, how old was your mom when she passed? And he said 33. And this blew my mind because I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Let's dig deeper, right? And then I decided that I'm going to look throughout the pictures and see when I went to ER with my second panic attack. That was my second day. So it was October 17. That means my first one was on October 16. I asked my dad what date she passed away, and I didn't say anything. And he said October 16. And I was completely and absolutely shocked. But it makes sense because there's some type of loyalty to the generation, right? Some type of, I'll feel what you feel. I'll live how you live, right? Like I can see that. I could have seen that earlier in my life with I grew up in a village, right? So to me, to break through and come to America, right, and live this life with hot water, light, is almost like I am betraying my people in a way. How can I live better than my people who suffered so much? So this was an interesting story that I looked at, and some words that I was saying in regards to my panic attacks, they really weren't related to my panic attacks. Because they couldn't. Like I have the fear of dying from being suffocated, and the way she passed away, my grandmother, it was through she choked, so she suffocated. So even the words came to me.
Wow. Well, this is pretty awesome stuff.
One of the things that it's tough to do when you're going through a panic attack is to kind of think clearly. But what helped me was to scan my body from head to toe, starting with my forehead, which is almost like, what am I thinking? What did I just remember that triggered the panic attack, right? And then go down to your eyes and think, what am I seeing? Am I seeing something that's reminding me of a time when I had a panic attack? And then go down to your ears and hear, maybe you're hearing a noise that's triggering you. And an interesting story to me happened that my friend put on cartoons while I was visiting her for her child, and that triggered the panic attack in me. The cartoons, the sound of the cartoons triggered the panic attack. So after that, I was very careful with the bass in my car. I even turned it down completely to zero, no bass, because the kind of noise was triggering a panic attack in me. Also going down to your nose and your mouth, and that's about breathing, right? Are you holding your breath? Are you breathing deep, and are you exhaling long enough? Then going down to your heart, checking in with your heartbeat, right? And all of the times the heartbeat is elevated, but kind of acknowledging it. Yeah, I see you. I see that you're elevated. I'm fine. I'm safe, right? Going down to your belly, a panic attacks and anxiety was linked to IBS. And there's interesting thing about this is that you consciously, you don't know you will need to use the restroom for about 6 minutes. So your body knows that you are going to need to use the restroom for about 6 minutes before you are aware of it consciously. So I even have a client who let me share this. She was doing this scanning and she realized that she had to use the restroom, and she did use the restroom, and she basically dodged a panic attack. because she wasn't aware that these gases that are uncomfortable, or the situation in there, that your nervous system says, oh, it's a trigger, and these are all things that when you check in with yourself, right, it can kind of help you see that this is a panic attack that's about to start, but you can say to yourself, I'm good. I don't need this. I'm good right now. I'm okay. I don't need this symptom. I'm okay. I can do without it.
That was really good practical advice. I like that you said acknowledge the heartbeat. I think a lot of people that have a racing heart in a situation don't even recognize that, and just not recognizing it kind of like increases the intensity of the experience, right?
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why my first panic attack was much scarier than my last panic attack, right? Because on my last panic attack, I was already knew what's going on. I was already in tune with myself, and I was able, the intensity was very short compared to the first one.
Wow. And then just the awareness kind of decreases the length of it.
Yes, the knowledge that this have happened to me. I know this is a panic attack. I know this, right? And I know that sometimes when you catch the symptom, like for example, the digestive issues, right? When you catch it beforehand, before your heart went to full mode, right, beating 200 beats per minute, then you can even dodge it. You can stop that panic attack from happening.
That's pretty awesome. Anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
I think we touched on everything pretty much.
That was pretty good. That was a good crash course in what you do. And your website's awesome. You have the book a session link, and it says courses and workshops available soon. Some of those in the works.
I'm planning on doing a panic attacks and anxiety boot camp. Whoever's ready for it.
Awesome. And you have the free little discovery call, and people can book a session with you. Really, really appreciate what you're doing. I think we need people in all areas of health helping each other. My focus is obviously the physical, but this aspect is just as important, I think. So,
right.
So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll put the links below. So her website is just her full name, and then your Instagram. Is your Instagram your name as well?
Yes, is my name. But you can also search Psychosomatic Coach, and I think it's me, and that's it.
Right on. Yeah, and I'll put the two book links below. I definitely want to check those out. And Oxana, thanks so much. This was awesome. Definitely all new stuff to me, but fun rabbit hole to go down and and learn about. And I think it's an important part of being healthy. So
thank you very much for having me, and thank you for guiding me, and helping me with my physical body that I was neglecting. I was working on my mind, forgetting to nourish my body.
Yeah, well, I think we remind each other, and that's the beautiful thing about the health community is we each have our own little thing, and in my opinion, no one has the whole picture, and it's kind of like a combination of working together. So thank you, and stick around as we close out the show. Well, that is it for today's show. Hope you guys liked that one. Hopefully it wasn't too all over the place. It's a pretty big topic, so it's kind of hard to focus in. I liked what Oxana said about how we can be taught to have a different reaction to the same situations. I think that's really empowering and especially helpful in the context of romantic relationships and even friendships. being less on autopilot and changing our perspective on things that used to trigger us. I've done that with my family before, and it works really well, and it definitely lowers stress. I think there are so many contributing factors to chronic disease, and stored emotional trauma or energy that's stuck, I believe, can definitely be a huge contributing factor to a physical ailment. And I still believe there's a calcification, lipofuscin, and fibrosis component to most chronic disease. But I'd imagine that the healing process is inhibited with poor emotional health and not fully processing traumas. So if you want to check out Oxana's work, I'll put her website below. It's just her full name. And you could book a session with her for psychosomatic coaching and or hypnotherapy. And I highly recommend it. I think it could help everyone because we've all been through traumatic experiences. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, just as a man, being born in a hospital and circumcised is super stressful and traumatic. And that gets pushed way down into the subconscious mind. And I think you need modalities like this to access it. I'll put a link to her Instagram below. It's just her name with an underscore at the end. And she has some great posts and just simple tips that you can use, especially if you deal with anxiety or panic attacks. And if you do, I definitely recommend just booking a session with her and working one-on-one to see if she can help you out with that. I think Oxana's work can be a really powerful reset for a lot of people. And then after that, you can add in magnesium and sodium and potassium, make sure you're eating enough salt, make sure you're eating enough calories, enough macronutrients, you're eating frequently enough, you're not skipping breakfast. If you're not hungry, you're at least having fruit juice or liquids or bone broth, and you're nourishing yourself and not just drinking water or green juices or fasting. I think a lot of people are stuck because of what Oxana talked about, and they just feel paralyzed and they feel like they can't improve their physical health. So I think this is a great way to get unstuck, to work with someone like her that's trained and skilled in this sort of thing. And then you could start adding in all of the foundational physical stuff. So I'll also put the links below to the books that she recommended. And as always, if you want to support my work, you can go to matt-blackburn.com. Lately, I've been enjoying the molecular hydrogen tablets again. In between meals, just dropping a tablet in about 12 ounces of filtered water. And it's hydrogen gas, H2. And I kind of go wild and use deuterium depleted water, 5 to 10 ppm, on the infopathy while the tablet is reacting with the water. And lately I've been running 528 hertz on the infopathy through the water. And it's really wild how the mouth feel of the water will change. And my family that tried the infopathy for the first time, that's frequencies or infoceuticals beamed into the water, which sounds super out there. But my whole family that's kind of skeptical sometimes about the stuff that I share, they all commented on how either the water tasted different or they felt different. And I didn't do any suggestions. I actually just chose what I thought they need and handed them the glass of water. So the stacking is something that I really enjoy because it gets to a point where there's so many devices that you don't have time to use them all. That's kind of where I've been the last few years. And so you have to find ways to combine therapies. And when it comes to water, I find the infopathy plus the molecular hydrogen tablets is really powerful and actually affordable for most people thing to do. So I'm currently using the tablets from the company Vital Reaction. I have them on my website, And if you use the discount code Blackburn, you save 10% on those tablets. And then my supplement company is called Mitolife, and we are still working on bringing products back in stock. It's been hard to keep up as the company grows and the word gets out there about the CLF protocol. It's a good problem to have, but we've been a little strained, especially with Convid, to stay in stock of all the products. So Purely K will be back beginning of October. Dissolve It All will be back the middle of October. And the Panacea Pure Shilajit tablets should be back about mid-October as well. And you could always keep an eye on the Mitolife Instagram account, and we put frequent updates up there. So there's a new episode released every Friday. If you like the show, please share it with your friends. Leave a review on iTunes. That really helps me out. And I will see you guys next week. Don't neglect your emotional health and stay supercharged.